Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to replace xmobar with the tint2 panel. What this will allow you to do is have icons in your system tray, add application launchers, and have a nice easy to use GUI package, customize everything. So if I come across up here, you'll see that I have the Network Manager applet running, OBS Studio, which I'm using to beam my Linux laptop over to my Mac laptop using NDI, which I'll do a video about shortly. And all these are clickable, so you can see here I'm actually across. And basically what I'm going to do is show you how to set up tint2 and replace xmobar. So this is the tint2 GitLab page. It's a pretty boring page, not a lot to see there. There's links to the documentation, but this is the actual panel, and would install this on Linux using sudo apt install tint2. And the advantage of this is that there's no Haskell code to muck around with. You don't have to use xmobar at all. So if I come across to my xmonad file, what I'll do is I'll show you how we actually start tint2, and then how you set your main block up in xmonad, use tint2, and then how we use the tint2 GUI application. So in my startup hook in xmonad, basically we start tint2 by specifying the path to tint2 -c and then the path to the configuration file. So that's the startup hook that you use launch tint2. Now if I come down to my main section here, basically what you'll see is that I have removed all the xmobar code completely. So we're not going to be using xmobar at all, and the advantage is that there's no tricky Haskell code to muck around with. Install the package, spawn it using your startup hook, and configure it using a GUI. I'll provide links to these configuration files under the video. So this is the xmonad configuration file, and this is my tint2 configuration file. And what I'll do is I'll actually show you the GUI application that you use to configure this. Basically, the tint2 GUI application writes the configuration file out for you into a text file. So what I'll do is I'll come across and just show you some of the advantages of tint2. As I've said, you can actually click all these. You have your system tray, you've got the time, you've got application launchers. So what I'll do now is actually open tint2, panel manager, I think it is. Okay, here we go. So this is the tint2 application, and first of all, when you launch it, what it will do is it will provide you with a list of panels that you can use, and these are some of the panels that you can select. And so what happens is you select one of these panels, then click default, make default, and that will make the panel the default panel on your system. Then what you do is you click edit theme, and that brings up another window where you can configure all the options, and I'll go through some of those options, how they affect how it interacts with xmonad. There's a few gotchas. So what I did was I chose this particular panel because as you go through the panels, you'll see some of them don't list the workspaces. So you can see here, this is listing the workspaces that are actually running. So that's why I chose the panel I did, because it listed the workspaces. So if I come across to edit theme, it takes a second to load up. Okay, there we go. So this is the configuration for the panel that I've chosen. And what I'll do is I'll come through some of the options. So you've got options to set gradients, background, and this sets the background of the panel and some of the buttons. Then we've got the panel. Now this bit, what this allows you to do is position the panel on your screen, and there is one thing to note. You can set this to, I've set mine to be in the middle, set it to be compact, and I'll explain what that does. If you uncheck compact, what will happen is it will make the panel extend the full width of the screen, so that these icons would be on the right and all this would be on the left. But the problem is it then adds spaces between these workspace buttons to fill up the space. So what happens is you'll have like the first button here, the second button here, and then third button here, which isn't great because when you're looking at it, it just means you usually have to go, there's panel 1, there's panel 2, there's panel 3 over there. So that's why I've selected the compact option, which reduces all the space, and I've set it to be in the middle. So that's the first kind of gotcha that you've got to be aware of. If you don't check compact, there will be spacing between the workspace buttons, which looks a bit odd. Now, if I come down here, there wasn't really anything else I selected down here that was needed. This is one section that actually affects how toggle structs works. What you want to have it set to is panel layer normal, maximized windows match panel size, and that will basically mean that toggle structs work. Okay, so you can see toggle structs is working, which is essential. You don't want a little panel up at the top when you've got a full screen video. Next I'll move on to the panel items, and these are the items that are going to be in the panel. So we've got the taskbar, which is the workspaces. We've got the launcher, which is actually little launchers, so that before I click the volume icon it launched PavView control. We then got the system tray, which is OBS and the network manager over here. Then we've got a separator and a clock. And basically what you do is when you want to add an item, select it in the left, right, click one of these buttons and it cross, or if you want to remove them, you would do the opposite. And then you can use the up and down arrows to arrange the order of the elements in your panel. So that's the panel item. Then we've got the taskbar, and what we want is show a taskbar for each desktop, hide taskbars for empty desktops. And what that will do is, I've got 9 desktops, but if I'm not using them, I don't want them displayed in the panel because it just takes up a lot of extra space and it's visually distracting. So that's why I hide the empty workspaces. If you want to show all your workspaces, uncheck. And then we have distribute size between taskbars. Basically this kind of makes sure that everything's evenly distributed among the icons. You can hide inactive tasks and tasks from different monitors. If you hide inactive tasks, what that will do is that will basically hide all the other workspaces and only show you the currently visible workspace. So you're probably not going to want to use that. I haven't used any of these other options down here really. You want to have show desktop name because as you can see here it's saying like 1 ZSH, 2 Emacs. If you remove that, you'll remove the numbers, so you want to keep that selected. I've then selected the font down here. There is an option somewhere I have to go through that actually sets the icon set that I'm using the papyrus icons. So that's the taskbar. Show a taskbar for each desktop. Hide taskbars for empty desktops. and set the font, and then we'll come across to the task buttons, and these are the buttons up here, and we're showing the icon text, centering the text, and tips. So you can see here should show tooltips as well, but maybe it's not because they're obscured by this window or thing. And again, down here, what I've done, two things is set the maximum width, and that sets the maximum width of the button up here for the workspace. So I've set it to 150 so that it shows the actual name, because if you've got it any shorter than that, it will actually cut off part of this text and make it harder to identify the actual application running in the workspace. So we want to have all those there, set the maximum width and set the font. Down here, this is where you can actually set the style for a task, whether it's like a normal, an active or an urgent task. It will have a different color. So let me just see. So that's how you can adjust the font color, opacity, icon saturation, brightness, all that thing for different kind of tasks. And I'll come across to the launcher down here, and this is the application launcher. And basically, if you've used something like the XFCE whisker menu, something like that, this will look familiar. It will basically allow you to add items into your panel to launch application. So basically, you come through, select an application on this side, click that button, and come across here, being in a panel, and then you select these things and move them up and down to arrange the order. So it's very simple and easy to use. Lets you add the icons, launch applications, and what I'll do is I'll just come across back to the panel, because you can set the order, the position of where the systray icons are and the application launcher are by using panel items. Excuse me. So first of all, you can see I've got the taskbar set first, and that corresponds to workspaces. Then I've got the launcher, these ones here, then the systray, and then the clock. If you want to rearrange the order of these, this is how you do it. You want to have your launchers over here, you'd select the launcher, move it up, it'll go over here. Okay, makes sense. So you can change the order, the taskbar, launcher, system, tray, and clock using this section, and the panel section over here determines the position of your panel. Again, remember I set mine to be compact, that there's no space between the workspace buttons. So that's the launcher. The launcher order determined by the panel item. Okay, so that's the launcher, and they're showing up over here. If you want to change where they appear, this is the section. Next section is the clock. By default, it will have a first and second line with the day, week, months kind of thing on the second line. I removed the second line because it then makes text really small and you can't read it. So I removed that, and this background thing changes the background of the particular icon, so you can actually have different backgrounds for the dock, the systray, the launchers, the taskbar. I should have changed the font down here for the clock to font I would use in other sections. I'll do that later on. But that's basically the clock. There's not much to the clock. Then we've got the system tray, and this is basically icon ordering, the monitor you want it to appear on, a background, and stuff like icon size, opacity, spacing, all that kind of stuff. You've got a battery, which I'm not actually using. I haven't enabled the battery to appear. If you want to have the battery here, you would come across to the panel items, the battery, move it to the left, and hold it up and down with arrow keys. So if you want to enable the battery, that's what you would do. And this is where you would configure it in the use. Yeah. Then you've got tooltips and separators. Are the sort of separators between the elements if you've used them. Pretty sure there was somewhere where you could actually select the icon set. So let me just scroll through and see if I've missed that. Pretty sure there was somewhere you selected the icon set to actually use. I thought there was something in here that you could select. No, the font. Bear with me. Scroll through. Yeah. Okay, in the launcher, scroll down to the launcher and select icon theme. And this is where you can select your icons. And I'm using the Papyrus Dark theme for my icon. And while I'm on the icon themes topic, what I'll show you is how you actually install icons. So if I just come across here, bigger, let's say icons. They're going to need to create the icons directory in your home folder, and then basically you can put icon themes in that directory, and then they will show up in tint2 and other applications. So if I just come across here, I think it was Papyrus. Dark. Papyrus Dark theme. Okay, Papyrus Dark, and basically here's the icon set. You can see it's nice and colourful. And basically what I did was I just cloned the Git repository. So should be somewhere, usually is that. There's a link down here in the sections how you can clone the Git repository. You can add it as a PPA, but you can also just clone the Git repository and then move the directory of the themes you want into the icons directory home folder. So that's how I downloaded these nice icons and installed them. So if I come back across to tint2, that's where I set the icon themes, and if I come back across to my desktop, you'll see the icons directory I created and the themes that I put in the folder. Okay, so that's how you set the icons, and you've got other sort of stuff down here that you can sort of play around with. I'll close that now and come out of that, and you can see it looks much nicer than regular xmobar. This is just a particular theme I'm using. It's got nice little underlines here, and one thing what I want to do is actually show you how to set the icon for URXVT, because by default URXVT terminal doesn't come with an icon, and what that will mean is that in your panel you wouldn't have an icon for the terminal. And also I'm using Rofi here, and you can see down here this window 1. This is window 1 is the terminal over here, and you can see it's got a little terminal icon. And if you don't set the terminal icon, that will just be empty. What I'll do now is switch across to my doc files, show you that's my doc files got. That's really bizarre. God knows what happened there. Okay, so set the icon for urxvt on Ubuntu X defaults, and if I scroll down to the bottom, you can see here urxvt.icon file, and then this is the path to the urxvt icon that's installed with the Papyrus theme. So basically, I just set the path, my icons directory, Papyrus Dark 3232 apps urxvt.svg. Then you would do xrdb xdefaults, and that will pick up the changes. Once you've done that, you'll then have a nice icon for urxvt terminal in the workspace button, and also down here in Rofi. So that's how you set the icon for urxvt. And what I'll do is just come across to the xmonad file once again and show you how we launch tint2, refresh your memory. In your My Startup hook, spawn once, user bin tint2-c, and the path to the tint2 configuration file .config tint2 tint2rc, and that's automatically written by the tint2 panel manager application. So you use the tint2 panel manager application, and it will write out all the changes to that file. You might want to keep your tint2 configuration file under Git, so that if you make any changes that you don't like, you can always revert. So that's a sort of good thing that you'd probably want to do. And I'll just come across to my desktop just to show you once more what it looks like, and just briefly go through some of the options. Again, I've set mine to be centered. If you uncheck the compact option I showed you in the tint2 panel manager, what will happen is these will all be on the right side of the screen. You can set the panel to be aligned left, center, or right. If you uncheck the compact button, all these icons here will be on the right. The sys tray, dock, and the application launchers will go to the right, and the workspace buttons will all move to the left. The issue is this, you can see how these are all close together. See how I can pick these nice and easy. If you uncheck the compact option, what happens is this button would appear over here, second button would be around here, and the third button would be like around here, and it makes seeing what applications on your desktop more inconvenient, because you've actually got to look sort of three separate places. You kind of got to look right across the screen, so it's not convenient. And I haven't found a way around. There is a free space icon sort of separator in the tint2 panel manager application, but it doesn't affect the task manager buttons, the workspace button. So even if you put the free space spacer between the task buttons here and the launcher and system application system thingy, system tray, it won't add space between this and this. So all your buttons would be spaced out, which is inconvenient. And it's also much more convenient to have all the buttons here that you can actually click without having to go across here and then move your mouse right across. So it's much more convenient, in my opinion, to have all the elements compacted. In some window managers, the time is actually in the center. For instance, on Gnome, I believe the time is actually positioned in the center of the screen, and the system tray is on the right. So I just find this more convenient. And as I said, what we've got here is we've got the network manager, so we can easily change networks. This is the private internet access launcher, and when I click that, that will start the private internet access VPN program in the system tray. And the reason I've got this is because the private internet access application only works from the system tray, and I couldn't get it to start automatically at login, and there isn't actually an easy way to launch it otherwise, so that's why I've got this application launcher. And this is the PavView Control Pulse Audio volume adjuster thing, and that's, my opinion, is a better way to do it than having a little thing you click here and drag up and down, because you launch this, you've got full control over your volume settings. So that's something that's easier to use. And I also using Rofi here, and I've put the icons in, and it works pretty snappy on Ubuntu. And what I'll do now is I'll just show you some of the applications that will actually launch from within Gnome. So there are some Gnome applications that will work on Xmonad, and there are some that are tied into the Gnome shell that won't launch. So for instance, the Gnome Control Manager won't launch, even if you set up Xmonad to run as using Gnome Flashback and do all this kind of stuff. It'll launch once and then crash. So that's why the Gnome Control Center on Ubuntu has settings for the network manager, and you can't launch a Gnome Control Center because it will crash. So that's why we need the NM applet network manager applet to be able to switch network interfaces and to switch to different Wi-Fi networks, because you can't open the GNOME Control Center to change the network settings. So things like Nautilus will open fine. The PavView control will work fine. If I sort of go through GNOME, these are some of the like disks, document viewer, Gparted, Brasso, some of the GNOME applications that will actually launch, whether even though you're not running a GNOME session, a full GNOME session. But again, there are some that are so tied into Ubuntu that they won't work properly, and that's like the GNOME control center won't launch properly because it's tied into GNOME shell itself, so just crash. So to say, there are some applications that will play nicely on Xmonad from the GNOME side, but then there are some that won't. So this is how we sort of work around some of those issues. So again, basically what you've now got is nice set of workspace buttons that all have different colored backgrounds, and we'll have different colored backgrounds, whether they're an urgent task or something like that. Then we have our system tray. This is OBS, that's a workspace. Then we have our volume, our sys tray icons, and the time. and it's all clickable. These are all clickable like this. That's your thing, and I can launch my drop-down terminal, which is using a scratch pad. And if I change that, what will happen is you can see now, once I activated my scratch pad, you can see that I now have this other desktop listed, this NSP, and I launch my Emacs scratch pad. You'll see that I have NSP and then the two scratch pads listed here. I haven't found a way to actually filter out the scratch pads from tint2. I don't think it's actually possible to do that. I may be wrong, but you probably need them anyway to show up. But that's just another sort of issue I'd mention, is that there is some code that allows you to sort of filter out workspaces, things like xmobar and other stuff, but I couldn't get it to work with tint2, and there isn't an option in tint2 that I could see that would let you hide the workspaces. So if you're using scratch pads, they will show up as a workspace once you've activated them, and again you can click these. Because I'm clicking them, it's kind of made them go a bit funny. So I've got keyboard shortcuts that toggle these on and off, but actually seems that if you click the things, it makes it go a bit weird. So I'll just come across back to the browser here. A quick recap is that basically install tint2 using sudo apt install tint2. Once you've done that, come across your xmonad.hs file, spawn once, user bin tint2-c in the path to your tint2 configuration file. Obviously you need to run tint2 first to create that file, and again basically if you come down to the main section here, you'll see it's much more compact and easy to understand, and the most important thing to get this working, which I actually forgot to mention, is you need to have EWMH and running. And what this will do is this will allow tint2 to pick up the workspaces like that. So if I come back to the top of the screen, what you need to do is import EWMH desktops. So import xmonad.hooks EWM desktops, and once you've done that, in your main section down here, xmonad with urgency hook, lib urgency hook. If you saw a previous video I did, that basically sets up desktop notifications using Dunst. So I have nice desktop notifications, and also it actually works when you disconnect network interfaces and stuff. So having Dunst running means that I get desktop notifications when I'm using my VPN. So when I connect or disconnect, I'll get a nice pop-up message. The desktop notifications also work with the terminal, which I showed you how to set up in a previous video. And what this means is that if you're using something like WeChat, an IRC client in the terminal, and you're on a different desktop and someone mentions your name, you'll get a pop-up. You'll get a nice notification saying, oh, so-and-so's talking to you. You can switch back to WeChat, which is really convenient so that you don't miss any messages. So that's what you need to do, is in your main configuration, you need to set up EWMH desktop, and stuff like down here, my startup hook. One thing I should mention is this log hook, the update pointer, that's needed if you're using multiple displays. You don't have this. What will happen is when you switch between one monitor and the next, the mouse will stay in the same, won't move across. So what I mean by that is if I was to switch, if I had another display plugged in and I switched displays using the keyboard, the mouse would remain on this display, which would mean that you'd be constantly moving your mouse back and forth, which is no good. So what you need to do is use the update pointer library with log hook. I'll scroll up to the top in a second and show you that. Basically log hook, update pointer, and you've got some options about where it will reposition the mouse, and these options here sort of position it sort of in the top left. So if I come across a look, there's update pointer. Yeah, here, import Xmonad actions, update pointer, and have a look at that library and the options that it gives you for the mouse position. And basically, that's what we did. Log hook, update pointer, and it took me a little while to figure out how to remove all the xmobar code from my main section. What I tried to do previously was, if you've seen the how you launch xmobar, you do sort of spawn pipe xmobar and the path to xmobar in your configuration file. What I tried doing was just changing that to point to tint2. That did work, but it just locked up the system frequently. So don't do that. Don't try changing the xmobar code just to point to the tint2 configuration file, because what will happen is you'll be using the tint2 application and you'll change an option and the screen will lock up completely, and the only way to get out of it is you can't quit xmobar or xmonad. You have to use F Control Alt and one of the function keys to switch to a new TTY. That would basically bring up, it would switch to a virtual desktop where you would log in and start a new session, and that's the only way you can get out of it. So don't try replacing the spawn once xmobar configuration and changing it to point to your tint2 file, because that will cause all sorts of problems. It will make the system lock up quite frequently when you're trying to use the tint2 application. So the better way I found is using the spawn once. You can run where is tint2, and that will give you the location of tint2, and then just put in the path to your configuration file. Once you've done all that, one other thing to note is sometimes what I found is you're using the tint2 application to configure stuff, and suddenly perhaps what will happen is you'll set it up the first time and you'll try toggling struts like this. Okay, you'll try toggling struts and it doesn't work, and you're thinking, why is this not working? What have I done wrong? And what you'll need to do is actually quit Xmonad, which is by default Shift Alt Q, I think, and then re-log in. And then once you've done that, it will pick up the changes, and toggle struts will work correctly. And I have found that sometimes with some of the options that will change an option and doesn't appear to be working, and you've actually got to log in and log back out for it to show up correctly. So that's some of the benefits of using tint2 over xmobar, that you basically just move all your xmobar code, you spawn once tint2, and then basically what you do is you just come across do the tint2 panel manager. I think the let me just go across to the terminal so I can actually tell you what the correct binary name for this is. If I do tint2 to, I think it's tint, yeah, it's tint2 config. Okay, so if you're launching this from the terminal or you're using D menu and you want to launch the tint2 application, you'd need to start tint2 config, and I'll come across to the actual application here and open it. And what I'll do is I'll show you the launcher for the tint2 panel manager. So got these panel items, taskbar panel launcher. That's the one. So these are the launchers that you can configure that show up here, and you can create a launcher for the tint2 configuration, this program here, and the actual name of the application is Panel Manager. Here you can see on here, Panel Manager. So you'd click that to move it across here and up and down to position it, and then once you click that button up here, it would launch this application here. So you can either, if you're using D menu, you need to run tint2 config, okay, and that will then launch this application. And if you want to put the panel manager as an application launcher, this is the thing you need to put in here, and it will then sort of show up here. And again, just to recap, you can move all these, the position of all these things by taskbar, panel item. Yeah, the panel items controls the position of these elements. So taskbar is the first one, which is the workspaces. And again, you have to set up EWMH with Xmonad for this to work, and also for Rofi to work. And these are the order of the items that we've got, and these are the other elements that you can add, like a battery, a clock. Again, the free space, you'd think putting a free space between the taskbar and the launchers would actually add free space. It doesn't. So again, if you don't, if you have compact unchecked in the panel, you have this unchecked, it will spread out the workspace buttons right across the screen, but the this tray, the launchers and the clock would be on the right, but all the panel buttons would spread out, which isn't very attractive. So that's the panel items that you can use, and how you can reposition them. So you can choose that you can have your taskbar over the right and all these things over the left if you wanted, and then set the panel to be on the left, set the length. You could set that to be on the bottom or the side if you wanted. But that's how you set all the panel items and the order of them, and how you can use different launchers. So you can have all these different launchers here. So these are some useful things that you might want to put up. Like files, that would be the Nautilus Files Manager. On your editor, Vim or Emacs, Kodi. These are all the applications that actually listed on your sort of system. So you could create easy to use launchers for your sort of favorite programs. So those are the options that you have here, and you see you've got tint2 listed here. That's the actual application and not the panel launch. So remember, you need to use the panel manager launch this application, and that's basically how you set all the launchers up and how you can reorder them. I'll just quit that now, and you can see I think that just looks much nicer than Xmobar. It's much easier to configure. one of the things you can also use Treya, which is like a lightweight GTK panel, and you can use that with xmobar, but it's got issues where if you've got your like date and time over here and you use Treya as a, to have system icons come up, it will actually display them on top of anything you've got here, and there isn't a way with Treya to set the position relative to the things you've got running in xmobar. So basically, if you're using Treya with xmobar, you can't have anything running in xmobar that is on the right hand side because it will be obscured by Treya and the system icons there. So this is a reason why tint2 is better than Treya, and just using tint2 on its own is a lot more convenient than trying to muck about with xmobar. It will give you all your system tray icons, you know, application launchers, all your workspaces. Much easier to configure. Install the package, configure tint2, set up your xmonad file to spawn tint2. So you may need to just log out and log back in, but once you've done that, you'll have a nice panel at the top that's much more convenient to use. And I'll also just mention Rofi and how I configured it to look like this. And this is the Arc theme. And what I'll do is I'll just show you how I set that up. So if I just come across here, where's my Rofi? Okay, Rofi. And by default, the location of the configuration file for Rofi is .config rofi config.rasi, and I did a video on this that you can watch in explaining this. Basically, this is the configuration, the mode that's running, like the window chooser, drun, font, and the terminal show icons true, and combi mode, window drun, and import user share Rofi themes arc dark .rasi. And there is a Rofi theme chooser, so Rofi theme selector, and you can see here what you can do is actually scroll through here, and if you read the text, you can preview themes by pressing enter, Alt A to accept the new theme, or escape to cancel. So you can see here, if I select these, see the different themes. This is the theme Arc Dark theme that I was using. There is also a D menu style theme. Okay, you can see this one up here. This up here, theme D menu. This is the D menu style Rofi theme. Go through, select all these, and just press Alt A to accept the new theme, or escape cancel. So if you press Alt A, what it will do is it will write out, wrong screen there. What it will do is it will write out into your configuration file and import user share and name of the theme. And then once you've done that and you launch Rofi, you'll have correct theme, and you can see I've got nice icons down there. And again, remember how you set the icon for URXVT in your X defaults. Otherwise that will come up blank and you won't have an icon for your terminal in Rofi or in the window up here. And basically what this allows me to do is not only can I search by the application name, I can switch windows. So if I type Emacs, that's the NSP is the scratch pad. I want that one. That's going to switch me to Emacs. And the advantage of using Rofi is actually, if I type Firefox, you can see here, what it's going to do is it's going to switch to the desktop running Firefox, whereas if you were using something like dmenu and you just select Firefox, what it will do is it will launch another instance of Firefox, probably not what you want. So that's using Rofi, and you need to enable the EWMH library in Xmonad. Once you've done that, basically you will have a list of all the workspaces coming up in Rofi that you can easily switch to, either by typing the application name like Emacs, or by actually just pressing the name of the workspace you want to switch to. So if I want to switch to workspace 1, I can just type 1. You can see it's actually showing OBS because it's saying the profile has 1 in it. So it's actually, sometimes it will, if the program, another program has a number in it, it will actually kind of confuse it, but I can then switch to another workspace easily like that. So I can either switch by using the normal standard keys, or I can use Rofi to see a list of all the applications running on the different workspaces with icons, so that I can easily visually identify them and switch to the workspace with that application on. So that's basically tint2 and why you'd want to replace xmobar with tint2 and how to set it up. And on a side note, what I've been doing is I've been using OBS to send this stream over NDI to a Mac running OBS Studio and recording on the Mac. And what I'll do is I'll do a video about how you can set up NDI on Linux and on the Mac, and actually capture not just video but also the audio stream from another computer on another computer. So that will be something I'll cover next, but that's this is just how you can sort of make Xmobar, not use Xmobar, use tint2, and just have a bit of bit of sexiness with your Xmonad configuration file, because I was playing around with the Mac and GNOME on Ubuntu, and there's just some things that just make life a bit easier, like being able to easily switch networks, adjust your volume nice and easily without resulting to the terminal and obscure commands to configure stuff. It just it's a nice balance to have. Got the power of Xmonad, of being able to switch screens and desktops easily. And one other thing I'll show you is actually, if I switch this into tiled mode, I'll just terminal size. What I'm going to do is launch a couple of terminals, launch 3 terminals. You can see now I've actually got different. So see here, if I one here, you can see now I have icons for the different terminals running on this workspace with the name of the application running in the terminal. And I did a video on that, on how you can set the terminal to play the name up here. You can see this just by default. What will happen is you don't do this, they will just say zsh or the name of your shell, and I'll just quickly switch across to the terminal and my Firefox, show you the configuration for that. But that's another nice thing about using tint2, is it will actually give you the name of all the windows running in that workspace, and you can see here I can actually switch. focus between these. So I've got news boat here. You can see it's got a selected blue outline. If I click that one there, W3M, you can see that that's now selected. So you can see as I'm moving between these, you can see how those are all being highlighted up here, which is really nice. It just makes it much more easy to see what's going on. So if I just come across to Firefox, and what I'll do is I'll just come across to my zshrc file. Why is it? Another thing, if you're using GitHub, you may have noticed recently all the icons have changed. So let me just come across down here. Okay, yeah, line 162 in my zshrc file, which I'll link to. Basically, what this does is this is what lets you display the currently running application in the terminal Windows title, which is what we're doing here. So that's how we have terminal actually have the window title show up with the application name, because otherwise these will all just say ZSH and you wouldn't know what's running in. And we did that by using a block of code down here. So that's basically how you can sort of make Xmonad a bit more friendly, easy to use as a desktop. So you got the ease of use of having all your application launchers and your panel. You've got nice clickable workspaces. You all have different colors which you can configure, and you've then got a nice, easy to use GUI application with lots of themes and options that you can tweak to rise your desktop and create your own color theme and everything. So that's basically how you can sort of set all this up, and some of the benefits to doing this instead of just using xmobar. I think that's all for now, and in a coming video I'll cover how you can set up NDI on Linux and on the Mac, and how you can capture system audio on the Mac using Black Hole, and you can also send an NDI audio and video source across to another computer. And the trick that you need to do to actually capture the audio on the remote computer is select the you need to capture desktop audio and select the NDI source to set to be monitor only. Once you've done that, it'll capture the desktop audio, but I'll show you that in a coming video.